Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation.
Raise your eyes to the skies, there's no holding you down. You won't be a flash in the pan. You're the man about town.
This is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins. Our guest is truly a major mogul. In his astonishing career, he's created entertainment companies which control properties, branding like American Idol, and the images of celebrities like Elvis. Now, he's come to Broadway as a producer, which brings him to Theater Talk and to my co-host, Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
All of those things are true about our guest, Robert F.X. Sillerman. Welcome to Theater Talk. But on Broadway, Bob, you are known as the man who came up with the $450 ticket at Young Frankenstein. You gave an interview to Variety recently where you admitted that that was a mistake to set that ticket price at $450. And you seem to indicate that the critics latched on to that ticket price as a way of beating up the show. But I've gone back and looked over the reviews, and the critics have also beaten up on the show itself, on Mel Brooks's writing of the show. Is it really the ticket price, or is the show just not good enough?
Well, you're reading some critics. Clive Barnes didn't beat up on the show. He said it was Broadway at its glitziest and its best. You know, John Simon said that it was one of the great nights in New York theater. Malcolm Johnson said it was funnier than the producers. So my
Ben Brantley was a little not quite so generous.
Ben Brantley said that he laughed 3 times. He must have had a bad night, because as Mel Brooks said to Campbell Robertson,
the reporter at the Times,
the reporter for the Times, he said, "Even I know that there were 4 laughs."
But to my point, though,
but to your point, I actually don't. I think that. What I meant to say in the article, and what I think I did say, was not that I regretted the $450 price. I regretted when we did it. Mm-hmm. In retrospect, I think all of Broadway, and you know, I'm an outsider. Even though at SFX Entertainment we obviously had a huge footprint on.
Yeah, you created the chain of theaters around the country.
Correct. And the producers which I was involved in, had a $480 premium ticket. But I had been advised by some very eminent people who know a lot about Broadway, most notably Paul Libin and Rocco Landesman.
At Jujamson Theaters.
At Jujamson Theaters, who said, "You're absolutely right, we do underprice our tickets, but wait until after the demand for the show is there. Don't do it in advance."
Right.
And in retrospect, here's the very specific mistake I made, and it was a fundamental misunderstanding of Broadway. The analogy I gave to Mel when I told him that I thought we should do this, and he fought me tooth and nail. He said, "No, I don't want to start with that price. Let's do what we did at the producers. Let's wait until we have
the show's in, it's a big hit, you can charge
hit.
Just about anything."
Correct. And I said to him, "Mel, you're like a chef. You've created a beautiful restaurant, and it was called The Producers. And now you're going to your second restaurant. And when Danielle decides that he's going to open his second restaurant, he doesn't wait to set the prices based on the fact that it's a new restaurant. He knows that he has a successful formula, and so consequently, he's able to charge, excuse me, appropriate and a fair price.
Based on his track record.
Based on his track record. The difference is that what I didn't understand, it was not unlike if Danielle operated a French restaurant and then decided he was going to do an Italian restaurant, because Broadway shows are different. It's not taking the same formula and going from one place to the next.
Right.
And so I think what happened, what you wrote about and what everybody wrote about before the show began, was in fact this aggressive pricing. And it distracted from the art. And I think unfairly had people focusing not on what Susan Stroman and Mel Brooks and Tom Meehan and Robin Wagner, et cetera, have created. People were focused on something that I had done. And that's the worst thing that a Broadway producer can do. The thing that people should be talking about is the art, and should be judging the art.
But for the critics who did not like Young Frankenstein, and there were reviews that were not very good, like Ben Brantley's, like the Daily News, Linda Weiner Newsday, they didn't just talk about the ticket price.
By the way, I couldn't go on with you. Well, I'd say, but then Pat Collins loved it, and Roger Friedman loved it, et cetera.
It's fair to say, though, that the producers got generally across the board rave reviews.
Correct. We had one bad review.
Who was that for the producers?
It was at the LA Times.
3,000 miles away there.
Yeah, that's right. The left coast.
But that Young Frankenstein did not get across the board
Correct.
great reviews. It got negative reviews. And I don't think, though, that the critics just focused on the ticket price. I think they did analyze Mel and Stroman's work, and they found it, in this case, wanting.
We'll never know, because I chummed the water. Now, the reason I gave the interview was pure and simply because I wanted people to understand that it is my perception that it was the incorrect thing to do, and that I distracted people from just evaluating the art. We'll never know.
Well, and I'll certainly say in your favor that, for instance, I mean, what's your lowest price ticket for Young Frankenstein?
$25.
No, but I mean the real lowest price.
$50.
To sit where?
$50
to sit where?
Sit in the balcony.
But to sit in the orchestra, it's what, $200 some?
$120, the same as every show.
Is it? All right.
In fact, you know, the vast majority, vast majority, over 90% of the tickets are priced the same as or lower than most Broadway shows.
But Broadway is so much led by the wonderful producers, being presented as something for the, as Hillary said, the wealthy and well-connected, that normal people, meaning the people I work with, or even the person I am, feel going into it that you don't care about them, you're not really interested in them coming, and it does put a bad taste in people's mouths. I know you're a businessman, but still, Broadway's not a place where working people, and I mean the people I work with, feel like they're being welcomed in.
Well, listen, I think that Broadway ticket pricing is archaic. The only analogy I can give you is an airplane, because when you sit on an airplane, that there are, as a matter of fact, I checked this, that on a particular flight on a Friday night from New York to California, there were 41 different price points based on the day of the week and the time of the year, et cetera. Broadway needs to do that. It's not for me to lead the charge.
Well, why not?
You led the charge for the $480 and $450 ticket.
Who better than you?
Well, because my psychiatrist will not give me leave to produce another Broadway show.
But you revolutionized ticket pricing in the concert world around the country. Why wouldn't you do that on Broadway?
Well, because my full-time job was in the live entertainment business. And in fact, we did institute dynamic pricing, which was initially reviled, but which turned out to be...
And what does dynamic pricing mean? What's the...
Dynamic pricing means that based on the demand for tickets, the prices either went up or down.
Right.
It's called yield management, that the idea being that you try and sell 100% of the available tickets to any particular performance, no matter what. And there are some where the demand is so strong that the prices just escalate. There's some where the demand is not and the prices decrease. Broadway absolutely has to do that. I mean, there is no reason in the world why there fundamentally are two price structures. There are 4 performances that people think are the attractive ones, which are surround the weekend, and they're the 4 leading up to the weekend. And the fact is that I challenge anybody to say to me that a Wednesday matinee in February during a snowstorm is worth the same as a Wednesday matinee in July.
But I've been told that there are major producers who would rather have the theater be half empty than bring down the price structure. And that's what seems so contemptuous.
They want the perception
audiences.
out there that you can't get a ticket to any show when in fact you can get tickets.
I think they're wrong.
Yeah,
I just pure and simple. And I think at SFX Entertainment we proved them that. You know, we produced 27,000 live events in 1999 and sold over 63 million tickets and virtually sold out everything that we did. Now, you know, to me that is empirical evidence that it works. And I think Broadway will get to it. I mean, they have sort of crept to it in an attempt to deal with discounting, which is, in fact, I think, doing it backwards. That price, as opposed to responding to the fact that things aren't sold and then saying, here's the price, but you get a discount, is that the prices should be established in advance based on the perceived demand in advance. We all know that a Wednesday matinee in February is not as attractive as a Sunday matinee.
So you would start off the show saying, in Wednesday matinees in February, we're going to charge $70 for the orchestra instead of $125 as we will in the summer.
Correct. And, you know, I mean, now I have no idea whether we'll be brave enough to do this at Young Frankenstein, but I suspect in 2009 we might in fact do that. That an orchestra ticket sitting in the 5th row center in February may be priced well below the current face value today.
Listen, you were brave enough to put it at $450. Why not be brave enough to lower it? Well, you might get better press that with doing that.
Well, we wouldn't do it for the press. We would do it because, you know, there is something to be said to playing to a full house. You know, it is a better experience for the actors.
I would think,
and it's a better experience for everybody who's there. And so consequently, I suspect that you'll see some kind of influence. But, you know, it does require the cooperation of the theater owner and the actual ticket distributor, in our case, Ticketmaster, which, you know, there's been great resistance, not specifically at Ticketmaster's level, but there has been great resistance at trying to do responsive pricing. Because what you said, Michael, is absolutely right. People want the perception that a ticket is very difficult. And by the way, what you just said is another reason why what I did was wrong. Because you said, well, what, the lowest price ticket you have is $200 or something like that. Which there is also that perception, A, that you can't get a ticket, and B, if you can, they're very expensive. The fact is that our tickets are the same price as every other show and lower than some shows, except for a small number of these premium tickets, which are priced the same as other shows.
Let me ask you, though, you spent, you know, your life in the entertainment business, and you know much of it is perception.
Yes.
Surely you must have calculated
Don't call me Shirley.
When you were... You've been hanging around Mel too long.
No, I've been hanging, what was that, Airplane? Yes.
That's right. But you must have realized, though, just the way the press operates. If you're going to announce a $450 ticket, the press is going to brand the show as $450 for all the tickets. There's not going to be any nuance in the coverage of something like that, and there wasn't.
Honestly, if I had thought that, and if I had thought it had been more than a one-day story, I wouldn't have done it. I mean, look, we've sold an immense number of $450 tickets and $375 tickets, and it has inured to the benefit of the producers, small p, not capital P. But the fact of the matter is that I still regret having done it. I would rather have sold fewer high-priced tickets. Not that in most cases that we could have sold more tickets, because it's still hard to get a ticket, although obviously there are days of the week when you can get tickets. But I would much prefer to have not had the focus. For instance, I would rather have been sitting here discussing anything but the economics of the show, swapping Mel Brooks stories.
Well, has Mel forgiven you, or is he mad at you for this decision? I mean, you say you fought tooth and nail, but, you know, Mel is intimately involved in the producing of his shows.
But I mean,
Mel likes a buck.
And people thought Mel was being greedy. I mean, they did.
Well, They absolutely
as the
did.
representative of the show.
They absolutely did, because who's Bob Sillerman? You know, I mean, there's Mel Brooks, 81 years old. You know, has provided comedic elements since Sid Caesar, so he's a very easy target. Mel, has he forgiven me? Here's what Mel said to me. He said, "I'm proud of you," which I absolutely appreciated, because he said, people in the entertainment business don't ever admit they're wrong. And I said, fundamentally, you said I've been in the entertainment business my whole life. I'm not sure I consider myself in the entertainment business. You know,
you built theaters, revolutionized the concert business around the country?
Yes, but you do represent, and looking at your bio, I see that you do represent entertainment that often is already established,
right,
even to the extent that a Mel Brooks is established, or
correct,
that I spoke that you control the
Elvis Presley estate
image,
correct,
the Muhammad Ali image,
yes,
and you're not, is it fair to say that you're not so much developing things, but you're repackaging and putting them out and controlling brands, was what your bio says, controlling.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, for instance, we own American Idol, but we didn't create it. Simon Fuller is the genius behind it. His idea brought it to the United States from a successful British version, and we bought his company. Have we had an influence in making it more successful? I hope so. But the fact is that just as it was very easy for me to sign on to produce the second Mel Brooks musical, well, the second in this era Mel Brooks musical, because Mel is a proven commodity. Despite what Ben Brantley says, Mel is funny. There are more than 3, there are more than 4, there are more than 34 laughs in the show, and it's not hard to say, yes, I'm going to back that.
Now, some of the other things that the decisions you made in the producing of the show, which sort of generated this kind of backlash on the part of the very clubby and somewhat bitchy theater business. You made the decision
Your
not...
words, not mine.
Right. I'm president of that club, I'm afraid.
I'm afraid so, yeah.
You decided not to report your grosses in Variety. Why?
That's a decision that I don't regret, because I think that the reporting of... I don't understand why people do it. You know, there's a... saying about Hollywood, it's not so much that I succeed, but that it's important that you fail, right? I'm always, I hate superlatives. My daughter is the cutest. My daughter is the smartest. By the way, she is, but that's neither here nor there. But because comparisons, I think, are part of what's wrong with this country, is that everybody is looking in everybody else's pocket and what everybody else is doing. The fact is that this is an enterprise that should be judged on what it is, on the organic strength or weakness of any particular Broadway show. And comparing how much money and what other people took in compared to a particular show, it to me makes no sense. It's sort of like saying that how good was the meal at this restaurant? Oh, it was great. It was $150. What does that have to do with how the food tasted? You know, so that our success, and you know, by the way, what's funny about it is, had we been willing to report grosses, we would have bragging rights, the likes of which haven't existed on Broadway. I mean,
Variety estimates your grosses. Do you cooperate in any way with Variety's estimation?
None. And some weeks they're close, and some weeks they're way off.
I think what you say is fascinating, but I do find it ironic that you're the man that owns American Idol, the biggest contest in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, but in fact, that is exactly that, is that we're asking the American public to vote on something. And so consequently there we do need to have a quantification. We're not asking people to say, we want you to judge how much money is being made by selling the advertising. We're saying, is Carrie Underwood the best singer? And people vote on it.
Would you... There's a movement now on Broadway to do these, like Legally Blonde and Grease, for example, to have these American Idol-style shows, casting Broadway shows.
Yes.
Was that something that you would ever consider doing with Young Frankenstein or other shows that you'd produce?
Yeah, it's so ironic that you mention it, because when we bought American Idol, I had an idea that I thought would would help Broadway, because Broadway in many ways has become elitist, and it has become a place where not enough risk is being taken. But one understands that because it's so expensive to mount a show, particularly a musical, that consequently people are trying to eliminate the possibility of failure. And in so doing, you know, all the famous statistics, like I said to my daughter, you know, that in sports, somebody is considered, well, Alex Rodriguez won the MVP last year by failing to get on base 2 out of 3 times, right? And, you know, and makes an immense amount of money, and, you know, probably the greatest player of this generation.
It doesn't happen on Broadway. If you fail to get on base, you don't make any money.
Right, exactly. But with the lack of risk-taking that currently exists on Broadway, and with the focus on needing to be successful, it seemed to me that an interesting concept would have been, and something that I actually did indirectly try and present to the League.
That's the League of American Theaters and Producers.
Right. Was the idea to do an idol-type show, to cast somebody to go on Broadway, but not for a specific show. What I think would have been a much more interesting television thing would be as if the League could have gotten the people who had operating musicals to agree that there would have been a contest, and that based on the style, the age, and the appropriateness, the relative gender, etc., of the winner, that a show would have said, yes, I'm going to put that person on Broadway. Ironically, the reaction that I got to that was, that's crazy. You know, you have to come up through the ranks to do it. Well, how about Fantasia?
Yeah.
How about Clay Aiken?
That would have been great.
It would have been great for Broadway had they been willing to do it.
No, absolutely. It's a fine idea. And, you know, you won't be beaten up in the theater world if you come up with a show like that. The future of Young Frankenstein, I mean, I know you don't like to discuss the numbers and that kind of thing, but, you know, one hears rumblings that it's not as, you know, certainly not as strong as the Producers was. Is this a show that's going to last, or are you looking at some trouble spots ahead?
It's going to last. There's not a week that it's been running, weak comparison to the Producers, where it hasn't grossed more than the Producers, although I won't be any more specific than that. We're now planning for the road version of it, which there's some fascinating possibilities that we can do. And obviously, I do have my only Broadway knowledge, and it's minuscule, about musicals, has to do with the road. You know, obviously,
you created the road.
we did have some impact on that. So this show has a huge future on the road.
And you believe you can get past sort of negative carping in the press about ticket prices, about the quality of the show, about Mel's sort of crazy interviews he was giving there for a while, bashing the critics?
I'm not a big believer in research of entertainment elements, you know, focus groups and things like that. But we did conduct, at the request of somebody else, a very extensive survey, and 91% of the people who exited the show loved it and said that they would recommend it to somebody else. For every great review from Clive Barnes or John Simon, maybe for every 3 great reviews, there was 1 negative one. We get 1,800 referrals every night. All right, we got to wrap it up. Yep.
Well, Bob Sillerman, thanks a lot for coming on to Theater Talk, falling on your sword a little bit for Mel Brooks and Young Frankenstein. But we will watch with interest all that you're going to do on Broadway, and I assume you'll be producing more things. I mean, you haven't been completely burned, have you?
Well, as I said before, it would require a pass from my psychiatrist, and I'm trying to reduce from 5 days a week to 3 days a week, so that I think if I went and I said to him or her that I was going to produce something again, they might suggest that we would accelerate the therapy. But no, a serious answer is that I'm not sure. I do have a day job, and it has actually turned out to be substantially more work
doing Young Frankenstein.
But you can create a unit to develop new talent and bring brand new shows to Broadway.
That's
and
true.
Have,
you have
and
the
have
resources to do that.
Seats.
Listen,
make it a priority.
If you get the theater owners to cooperate, you know, you find a theater owner who's going to say, you know what, I'm going to lower my rent, and that I'm going to not take a percentage of the highest possible gross. I'm not going to be looking for another Young Frankenstein or for another Wicked, and I'll give you my theater on that basis. If you find somebody to do that, then I'll set the unit up to do it.
It's a deal.
It's a deal.
Robert F.X. Sillerman, the producer of Young Frankenstein, thanks a lot for being our guest on Theater Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Have you heard about the mania? If not, then let me explain ya. Yes, sir. It's the Transylvania mania. Whether you're in Mauritania or a dance hall in Albania. Yes, sir. It's the Transylvania mania. Everybody who's been viewing it can't resist its appeal.